So ladies, I have another devotion for you today, and I title this one, Lean Not on Your Own Understanding. You know, for the last, unknown amount of time, I've just really been pleading with the Lord to give me a word. Give a dog a bone! And about a week ago, I was at church, and I've already told the pastor of the church about this, but I was in the kitchen area during the first part of the worship service. What a place to be. They were serving breakfast, so I was having some. And I sat down at one of the tables there, and the kitchen area in this church is located right by the nursery area. And there were these verses that were written on the wall, you know, for the kids to read and things like that. And one of them really stuck out with me. It was Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And I started reading this verse, and I felt like God was answering my prayer. He was saying, okay, Steve, I will speak to you. I will give you my word. And I just could not put this verse away, so much so, and this is a very common verse, by the way, that I memorized it. And so if you have a Bible, you can read along or just listen to me ramble here. But it's Proverbs, again, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, and it says this: Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, not just some of your ways, but in everything you do, okay? In all your ways, acknowledge him, include him in everything you do, and he will direct your paths. Not just your path, but your paths, right? I mean, man is very complex because we're made in the image of God, and so we have many paths. But the promise of these two verses is that if we seek the Lord with all our heart and acknowledge him, include him in everything we do, he will give us his word, maybe not literally, but in that he will, by circumstance, by people, by, the mysterious workings of God, he will direct our paths. And I feel like this verse speaks to me, and I think to people in general, about, some very difficult times. I know I'm getting back on my stage again of things that are coming to the United States. You look at the fact that we're now fighting actively, maybe not directly, but actively through NATO in the Ukraine. And this is really, whether people want to admit it or not, a war between the East, represented by Russia and China, North Korea, all of that nonsense, and the West. It's the totalitarian East versus, more or less, the democratic, free West. And that's what you have here. And again, it started last February, and it continues to escalate. But I believe that things for the United States are going to get much worse now as we enter this war, bankrupt. And I think that if we're going to be able to cope with this, particularly as Christians and, as churches within the United States, the verses for us, even though it may seem unlikely, are Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. We're going to have to be willing to trust God in what's coming. And we're going to have to be willing, and this may be harder for some than others, right? Particularly those who are very driven and very left-brained by temperament. It will probably be everything they have to let go of their own understanding and lean instead on God's understanding and God's provision for what's coming. But I think that as believers and as pastors and leaders within churches, we're going to have to let go of a lot of our control now and give ourselves over to God's direction, God's provision, and God's protection. That's about all I have for you, ladies, and this is not a closed devotion. It's sort of an open-ended devotion, and you're welcome to add to this if you want. But God bless you both.